Live from the Pines, your favorite East Texas sport podcast. Glad you live tonight. Tonight we have a special guest, offensive coordinator, Groveton High School, Gunnar Quick.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me.
I'm not used to seeing you in those colors, but we're gonna let it slide tonight. We're gonna let it slide tonight.
Yep.
Coach G, how have you been, man? How's everything going? You're in Trinity County now. You're out of Angelina County. You're in Trinity County at a new program, new school, new faces, new kids, all those things. How's it going in Groveton right now? How are you doing?
Man, it's going good. I'm doing good. For those of you that don't know, that's where I started. That's where year one was for me in Groveton, Texas. So transition's been smooth. A lot of the same faces are still there. So it was cool to see them just as excited as I was to get back. And, everything's been smooth and they're taking real good care of us. So
I just want you to brag about Live from the Pines real quick. It's, you were one of the first guys to probably come on the show. And, we got a little background and stuff now. We're moving on up in the world,
Yeah, you got up a little bit.
Yeah, got a few sponsors. It's our 60. This is episode 63, so that's huge for us, huge for the show. We've been trying to get after it the last few months, and especially in the Texas high school football world, and build a brand and get as many coaches as we can on the show and talk about their journey and what their season looks like, what's to come. But Coach Quick, you've had a long time in the football game since you were a kid as a ball boy, coming up playing at Lufkin, and you start off at Groveton, you get the chance to coach at Lufkin, and talk about those days and what it meant to be, to go have the chance to coach at your alma mater and coach for your dad, legendary Todd Quick, and all the things you got to experience, those years and growing up being around that program.
Well, I learned from the best growing up. I grew up in the locker room, grew up around the coach's office, and so it was from a young age, this is what I've been wanting to do. It's always been a goal of mine. It was a goal of mine to come back and coach at Lufkin for the Lufkin Panthers with my dad. And, I got to accomplish that. And I learned a lot from that staff and from our offensive unit. And, I'm looking forward to carrying that on. And, with Coach Green, he's been a huge mentor for me for a long time. And, to be able to coach with him is to continue coaching with him, is awesome. And it's, I'm every day I wake up, I'm living the dream, man. I have no complaints. And I'm just real grateful to be where I'm at today.
Those kids in Lufkin, I'm sure when, you made that move to Groveton, I know it broke a lot of those kids' hearts because you were great about building a relationship with your kids, and they knew they could always go to Coach G. You're always there for them, and that's big, especially in today's world. Especially in the hold on 1 second. Oh my God, Lamar just scored the first run. In today's world, especially in the high school football level, every kid needs somebody. Being a student athlete is not easy. Especially with the way the game has changed now. Especially you look at college football now in recruitment. It's not as uncommon as it used to be to see, schools recruiting. Like look at the University of Texas, A&M, Texas Tech, all these guys. They got kids California, Florida, the Midwest. They're recruiting everywhere now. Back in the day, you look back at Lufkin and you had maybe one guy going to Baylor, one guy going to Tech, one guy going to A&M, a guy going to Texas, all those things. And nowadays it's not as easy I'm not saying it's not as hard as it used to be. It's way easier now to go play college football than it used to be.
Yeah. Especially
with technology and all those things, you can be seen easier. The 7-on-7, how big that is now, the camps, all those things. But it's you got a running back here in say East Texas, but you got a kid in Florida that can do just as much as you can. He has a little bit more burn, and you're having to compete with a coach that's recruiting this kid, and then you got me that's 4 hours away from home, right here in the backyard. It's just not what it used to be. You know what I mean? You get what I'm saying? And
I know the big thing, like all these Texas schools, they have those meetings and everything, and their big thing is the Texas schools want the Texas kids. You know what I mean? And that's their big thing, and they push that a lot, especially from my time as the recruiting coordinator in Lufkin, I got to talk to a lot of great coaches, and they are pushing Texas kids, but there's, like you said, there could be a kid in East Texas and somebody in Florida who does the exact same thing, and there's always the argument which state has the better football, but
Texas easily.
yeah, and so it's fun to connect and get to talk and get to know those coaches, and their stories started very similar to a bunch of the coaches that I know, and so it's fun. The recruiting process is tough, just because nowadays it's the hard part is just because you go somewhere, you sign somewhere, does not mean that's where you're going to end up in 3 to 4 years, and so it's tough. It's cool. It's a cool process. And, any opportunity to get to the next level is an opportunity that, these kids nowadays need to take advantage of, because, just because you end up somewhere that you didn't think you were going to end up, well, if you have the right mindset, there's no ceiling to where you could, get a degree from. And, because obviously getting the
degree's a degree.
It's the most important. That is the one thing that nobody can take away from you, and that's the big thing. Go get your school paid for. If you go to a school that doesn't offer athletic scholarships, then take care of your business in high school to where they have no choice to be like, okay, we're going to give you this presidential scholarship that's going to help you pay for your academics, with the opportunity to get a roster spot. But, the stipulation of that is you have to keep a 3.7 all 4 years you're here. So, but
Coach G, this step you just made, becoming an offensive coordinator at Groveton, this was all part of the plan and what you were trying to achieve. And, this is the start of something great for your career in the coaching world. Talk a little bit about, your journey, starting off at Groveton, coming to Lufkin, becoming the running back coach, then becoming the running back coach plus recruiting coordinator. How big was this for you, and, all the things you've been chasing to get to this spot?
It's huge, man. It's, I got to Lufkin, I was with Coach Green. I was with Coach Green in high school, so learned a lot from him in high school, learned a lot from him the past, 5-6 years. And he's prepared me for this moment, and we've had a lot of one-on-one talks about, what it's going to take, and, how to do this, if something happens, then do this, and we've had a lot of talks, and we spent a lot of time together, and it's huge. And, like I said earlier, I'm grateful for him trusting me with this opportunity. And, I'm looking forward to, everything that comes our way.
As far as you as a play caller on the offensive side, was the offensive side of the ball something you always saw yourself wanting to be? I know you played offense, you played receiver, you played quarterback. Is the offensive side of the ball you always wanted to see yourself calling?
Oh, for sure. Just because of how much creativity comes with that. You can draw up all kinds of stuff, and it can work out, it can't work out, it's fun, man. You can get creative with all kinds of stuff and try to keep things simple, but if you got kids that are savvy enough, you can get real creative with it, and it's fun when everything comes together and a big play happens, or you need a first down, and it gets the brain rolling on what you need to run and who to trust and who to go at on the other side of the ball. And so it's fun, man. You get to it's definitely I think better because all 11 are lining up and they know exactly what they're doing, whereas on the other side of the ball you got to react, man. You have rules on that side of the ball, but you got to react to it. And I'd much rather be on the side of the ball that knows exactly what we're doing and than having to react to somebody coming at me.
And the more I've been talking to coaches, especially on the high school level, the defensive side of the ball, in my opinion, is 10 times harder to coach than the offensive side of the ball. I'm not a coach by any means, but just from all the things I've seen, I actually saw something on Twitter. Somebody posted it was like a defensive play calling card from the Florida game like 4 or 5 years ago against LSU. and like all the different assignments and like, different calls you have to make, especially playing the safety position. You're calling the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I can only imagine what it's like being the DC on the sidelines and, having to stop, Alabama offense, Texas offense, all the, those powerful schools and stuff like that. Like I can only imagine. And I always talk about, we were watching the Georgia Texas game last year at the house, and I don't know what Kirby called, like his linebackers, they all just, it was one of the,
Yeah, it was right at the end of the game.
Yeah, it was just like it just came out of nowhere. Everybody just stacked the box up.
Yeah.
And it's like, as an OC, if I get the ball off and I'm, my front can protect my quarterback for enough time, there's a chance for a huge play because everything's there,
Mm-hmm.
But just to trust in your defense like that and just send the house in a crunch time moment like that, I could not imagine having to make that call.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about, Georgia, and they're always going to have dogs in the box. You know what I mean? You think about where Jalen Carter is right now, like with the Eagles. He is huge. He's fast and strong.
Nasty, aggressive.
Getting away, you know what I mean? Like, it don't matter. You can use the best technique in the world, but if he can pick up a bus and you're lighter than the bus, then, getting away for as long as you can, you're not going to ask somebody to block him for 5 seconds. You know what I mean?
We saw a lot of that last year with Zion. People, you could say about what you want about the performance or whatever you want to say, but he did his job. If it takes 2 to 3 guys to stand here and have to block me, I'm freeing up space for linebackers to work and, go make something happen. And the defense last year, they were phenomenal at Lufkin. The way they got after the ball was great. But as far as you having the chance, you talked about a little bit, get to learn from guys like Coach Green, Coach Outlaw, Coach Quick, getting to play for these guys, getting to be in the locker room with these, same guys. How big was that an impact on your career and where you are now?
Well, you saw how they approached every day. You saw how they approached every practice. And you saw how they prepared every day for Friday nights, and you saw the relationships that they had with those kids and how much those kids trusted them to put them in the best possible, scenario to be successful. And, back in those days when that trio was together, it was fun to watch a football game, under the lights at A. Martin. It was fun to watch those guys play just because of how much trust they had in all those coaches. And, it's all those coaches, man, back in the day, they were really, really good. And they understood those kids. They understood, what it took to win. And, that was fun to see, man, just because, you could go nose to nose with somebody on the sideline, another coach to coach, you know what I mean? And then, after the game, nothing else matters if, you win, you know what I mean? Like, if everybody's on the same mission, then nothing else matters except what it says on the scoreboard.
So you got to Groveton, was that January, February?
Early February.
Early February. So you get there in February, you and Coach Green both get over there. And what are some of the first things y'all saw when y'all got there?
How hard the kids work, man. Like, those kids, they work. There ain't no question about it. And, it don't matter what it is. They're going to say yes, sir, and they're going to work. And it was cool to see, just because, well, this sophomore class, I had them in 4th grade PE the last time I was there. So I remember them as little kids, and to see them grow up and, how big they are now and working, and, they love it. They love to work, and so that's, as a coach, if you got kids that love to work, then you're half the battle's already won for you. You know what I mean? So it's cool, man. These kids, they work every day. Don't matter. Sunshine, rain, it don't matter. They're ready to go.
If you know the history of Groveton, football in Groveton is big. It's something that means a lot to the community. Put your little red on there. Get
Yeah.
Red on there. But it's big in Groveton. It's a small town, Friday nights, everybody wants to go watch the Indians play. You go back to the days when you had Rodney Thomas, and Groveton did some damage back in the day.
Yep.
And you get a new coach over there, and if you look at the turnaround rate over there in Groveton, it's not been great. But when you hire somebody that's been at a program like Lufkin to be your head coach, and run a successful offense and put a lot of points on the board every year, that's one thing that you could say about Coach Green. He always scored points and did those things at a high pace rate. But you look at a lot of the guys that Coach Green had around him, and he produced. He probably has 10 to 15 guys that play on the offensive side of the ball that's played in the NFL or the Division I level. Mm-hmm. And it's a big thing. And the community of Groveton, they're probably really excited to have you guys. And, it's a chance for y'all to go down there and turn that place around and get it back to what it used to be. I think Groveton was 0-10 last year.
Yeah.
So, it's a long time coming for, the community and the kids in the town. They got somebody that knows how to win. They won before. They did these things. People don't remember Coach Green. Was he a GA that year with Lufkin One State?
He was the receivers coach.
He's the receiver coach. He came in as a GA. That's right. He was a receiver coach. So, he's been there. He's played in those, 3-4. He's coaching those 3-4 round playoff games. And, it takes a lot of that experience to go win those big ball games.
Mm-hmm. No doubt, 100%. And, we're, like I said, those kids are accepting the challenge and they're getting after it every day. And, the future is bright. And I know it's hard, like you said, the turnover rate, because they can just say, oh, y'all are just another couple of coaches coming in to, just, what I mean? But, and I think they're starting to figure out, like, we're here for the long haul, and, they're buying in and they're accepting the challenge, and, everything's going as good as it can right now. We had a really good track season. Had all our relays made it to, we made it to the area, I think. Yeah, we made it. We got out of district, made it to area meet, and, they got better every week. And it was cool to see, like, they bought into what we were trying to do, bigger, faster, stronger. And it worked out really well for them, and they had some success. And it was cool to see their smiling faces after they realized, hey, we just qualified. And so it was cool, man. So,
the 3A level of football, Groveton's in the 3A, right?
2A Division 1.
They used to be 3A, right?
I think back in the day.
They used to be 3A. 2A now, a lot of running going on. Don't run the ball. If you got the guys up front to block, get that first push off the ball, you're going to be good. If you can run the ball in 2A football and you have a weapon out wide that you can put the ball in his hands, you can go win a lot of games at the 2A football level. Oh
yeah, and we've been working, man. We've got some big old country strong kids that love to throw that iron around in the weight room, and we got some kids that can run the ball behind them, and our job is to get those kids in the right position to be successful, and they're excited for it, which obviously makes us excited for it. And like I said, the future is bright.
So you talk about the big boys. I've heard a lot of rumors about what y'all got cooking in Groveton. Got some size over there.
Yes, sir.
You're young, so that means you get a lot of time with these kids. You get a couple years with them, you get a couple seasons with them, and I think the goal is if you can go out and win a few ball games the first year, it shows that we're here. We're here to make some noise in 2A, and then you get them. The longer you get these kids, the more you'll see the results, and you'll have a chance to do something really special in Groveton with these kids.
Yeah, 100%. And they're hungry right now, man. They've got a chip on their shoulder, and we got some big old boys down there, and so it's they're working, man, and they're starting to lead that group, and we're putting a lot of pressure on the big boys, and they're accepting the challenge, man. But they're not the only ones. Everybody's starting to buy in a little bit, and they're flying around on a daily basis, and excited. They're juiced up. We've got a top 10 for the junior high, and we got a top 10 for the high school. And, Coach Sanchez, the strength guy, he came up with bring the juice. And so those top 10s every day, they've got, different color shirts than everybody. And on the front, it says bring the juice. And so, we kind of hold them to the expectations of every day, regardless of anything. Bring the juice. Let's get it on, so.
That's been a motto of yours for a long time. Let's get it on. And we've heard that, up and down the sidelines with you in purple, and I'm sure we'll continue to hear it with you in red. But, you look back at last season at Lufkin, you had the chance to come in, and I think it was the Port Arthur game, due to certain circumstances, you got to call the offense.
Yeah.
How big was that for you in your career to get to call, an offense and that level, that intensity of a game?
Well, that whole week was crazy, so, but, going back to what I said about Coach Green, he had we had one-on-one talks and, kind of went over every scenario of what to do, when this happens and what to do, what not to do when this happens, and so, and then we get through practice that week, we get to the field and, I don't know, did you go to that game? So I don't know. The size difference was crazy. Port Arthur's linebackers were huge, man, and they flew around. And our kids, they were foaming at the mouth to get out there and go to war. And so we got together as an offensive staff, and let's get it on. And so we all worked together right there, and we came out with a win and big game from Quincy Coutee and Kibo Taylor and Kenneth Waters. They all three contributed, but the O-line, they did great. They did amazing holding that front four. They had our number in the first half, but first half don't matter. And we came together, made some adjustments, and got after it in the second half. And defense kept us in the game. And so at one point we kept saying it's about to hit, it's about to happen. And, finally it did. And the kids played their tails off for us. And, that's all you can ask for.
You talk about that season. I'm watching the Texas baseball game on my other screen right here. And Jonah Williams, Galveston ball, is up to hit again for the second time in this game with the bases loaded with 2 outs. First time he grounded up the middle. And he just took 2 fastballs down. He took a fastball and a curveball right down the pipe. But back to G. Talk a little bit about your time at Lufkin as a player. I see Big G McCoy just commented, and that brought back some memories. And I was, was that your senior year? Yeah, that was your senior year. You were hurt, correct?
Yeah, junior. I got hurt in week 10 my junior year, and then
Gets Klein, right? You got hurt.
That was my sophomore year.
Oh, your sophomore year. You got hurt again your junior year. That's right.
Yes.
So, talk about that season y'all had, you, T-Stub, Kiki, Jabrice, Henson, Terry Mark, Kendrick Mapp, all those guys. Talk about that season.
So that year, that was Coach Quick's first year as head coach AD. And so, and we were close. And it was a fun group to be a part of. And we had dogs all over the field. And when that ball was snapped, you never knew what was going to happen. And so that was just a fun year, man.
A lot of your kids probably don't realize this at Groveton, but you could do a little bit on that football field.
Yeah, a long time ago.
If you could stay healthy, you did a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it's all right. I've had a good career. So
yeah. So, get ready for, you're not doing spring right now. You have a lot of kids, you said, that played basketball, they played baseball, they run track. All your kids are, busy. What's it going to take this summer to, really get these kids to buy in and trust the process? Because you got to hit it hard this summer.
Right. That's exactly right. And so we've been talking to, our senior class, and they're already asking, what time this summer? And so we're coming up with a good plan, and it's going to take a lot of hard work. And right now we're installing a little bit and getting it on, and they're excited, and just to see them just as excited, and so it's we're ready. Like I said, future is bright.
Future is bright. Um, is there anything that the people don't know about Groveton that's going on in Groveton? We doing anything different? If you could share any little insides, what's going to be different this year?
Yeah, I don't know who's watching this right now, so I can't say too much, but um, just let's get it on. Go Big Red.
It's obviously going to be a different, demeanor when you get on the field.
Right.
You're going to, I know for a fact you will have them ready to, jump out of their laces to go play football. And I know they'll be ready to, get fired up. And I know Coach Green, I know he'll have that pep talk and that talk. And when he says a few things, it takes a few words, and he'll make sure that, he lights a fire under all those Indians' butts and ready to roll.
We've got a couple games highlighted for real, but
let's get it on.
Get it on. That's the motto.
Oh, that's always going to be the motto. It's been the motto for years. Coach G, what are you now? 29?
30.
That's 30. Right. You are 30 now. 30 years old, offensive coordinator. That's that's huge. That's a lot of guys don't get that opportunity at 30 years old. And, Michael Ditzworth said he needs one of those Groveton caps.
Got to get with the boss man.
Got to get the boss man. But, to be 30 years old, get to be an OC, what is that for you to say to all these young coaches out there that are, still chasing their dreams, trying to get to that stage?
Grind, man. It's a grind. If you're in it for the check, get out. So it's a grind. You got to love what you do. You got to wake up and love what you do every day. Because at the end of the day, it ain't about you. It's about the kids. Because they're relying on you, and they are putting their trust and confidence in you. And if you're not prepared, they're going to see that, and you're going to lose respect. And so you have to love what you do, and you've got to love the kids. And it's you got to have all kinds of support, and the most important thing is the kids. You got to be prepared to set those kids up for success, because if you're not ready for failure, then this profession ain't for you, because you're going to fail, and how you learn from that is going to make your climb to the top a whole lot easier. But it's a grind, and you got to love it.
Let's get it on.
Let's get it on.
So, Coach G, you, for instance, coaching has always been what you wanted to do. Your brother's coaching now. Your dad coached for 30 plus years. You've been, we've talked about it. You've been around and all those things. But, if you weren't coaching, what would you be doing?
I have no idea. I think about that all the time. I have no idea. From as long as I can remember, people are saying doctors and lawyers, astronauts, But, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? A coach. A coach. I'm like I said earlier, I'm living the dream.
How big of like for you, it's always been a big importance to make, the kids number one and always be there for them. But how do you go about that? Building those relationships like you do, each year, each class that graduates, they always Coach G this, Coach G this, Coach G that. How do you go about that from day one, building those relationships?
They have to know that you care. You can't just tell them, if you need anything, holler at me. Like you have to put yourself out there, and they've got to know that you care. They got to know that you understand. They've got to know that you love them, and you do anything for them regardless of situation. If they get into, any kind of bind, any kind of situation to where they do need you, pick up the phone. You just have to let them know, and they have to they have to know. That's the most important thing. Is if they don't really know, then there's no relationship really built. And so you have to let the kids have to know that you care about them. And that's the most important thing.
Gunnar, where's the farthest y'all travel this year?
Let's see. I don't have the schedule pulled up right now. I would say, did you say you had it pulled up on your screen? I don't have it right now. Let me look. I got it. Actually, I got it right here.
Yeah, I got it. What do you got?
Let me see. It would probably be Hearn or Frankston would be my assumption.
You gotta go to Hearn?
I think, let me see. I think we go to Hearn.
Play them Eagles? They're the Eagles, I think. Right?
I'm not sure. But I think everything's pretty close. But I think probably Frankston would be my guess, would be the furthest. Or Alto. But Alto's not too far.
You won't be taking that bus ride out. This will be the first time in a while you don't open up the season playing Longview, coaching against Longview.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's that been? 5 years?
6 years.
6 years.
Yep.
It's a long time.
We're approaching it as it's same thing, different colors. You know what I mean? So, it is what it is. You know the motto.
Let's get it on.
Yes, sir.
Well, Coach G, nothing but shout outs to you and the guys in Groveton getting ready to fire it up, get ready for the season. What are we, 3 months out? It'll be here before we know it, and I know for a fact that we'll have you back on the show and get to talk about Groveton throughout the season. One thing we've always caught up and had you on Live from the Pines. We enjoy getting you on here and talking to you, especially get to talk to young-minded coaches that are getting started and doing different things. The game of football has definitely changed, especially as from a coach's standpoint. You can't coach like you used to, and it's just part of times. And the way the offensive side of the ball has changed, everything's ran off of RPO now, or it's somebody's moving. It's movement's everything. You got to be able to move. And if you can move guys around and move eyes, you can go score a lot of points. And I know that's something you can do. I know you'll do a great job calling the offense at Groveton. I can't wait to make those phone calls to you on those Friday nights when I check the app and I see Groveton's won. I'm going to try my best to come catch a game. I'm going to try my best, but, man, it's going to be hard. I got to go watch the Panthers play. And
do what you got to do.
I'll have to find a way. Are y'all on any streaming platforms?
I'm not too sure. I think we're on NFHS. I think. Don't hold me to that, but
Well, come play. Come the playoffs. Everybody's on NFHS, so we'll know see. We know we'll see you somewhere because we know the Indians will be trying to strike out and make the playoffs in year one. That'll be big for you guys. How many games has it taken 2A to make the playoffs in y'all's district?
We haven't talked about it. I think we're in a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 team district. So probably win 2 and you're in. But
that's not the goal, though.
That's not the goal. No, sir.
The goal is to win that goal ball.
Yes, sir.
And I think y'all can get it.
I want to know.
You said what?
1 week at a time. Be 1-0.
That's it. And it's been the motto for a long time for you guys. And I'm glad to see y'all are carrying that legacy over to Groveton. But Gunnar, we thank you for coming on Live from the Pines. We look forward to doing this again and getting you on closer to the season, getting to talk more about a little ball. And, by that time, I'm sure we'll have a few inside notes from you by then. You'll be ready to share a few secrets because it'll all be out in the open by then. But
yes,
before we go, I want to give a shout out to our guys that really haven't. Malcolm Deason. You coached little Malcolm in baseball.
I did. He's got his own little brand right now, right?
He's a sponsor of Live from the Pines now.
Yeah, baby.
He came. Awesome. Him and Cooper Knight worked out a deal for us, and got him on the show, and we're glad to have him. We're going to use partnership with Live from the Pines. Use discount code HAVENFAM for 15% off your purchase online. Shop Really Havin' on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, etc. New limited edition hoodies out now. Make sure you go cop one of those hoodies from Little Malcolm. You know, you're a big hoodie guy. Go get you one of those hoodies. Also, shout out to our guys at Zilker Belts. My boy Bogey Brown, Austin Brown. We couldn't do it without you guys. Thank y'all for everything. Go to zilkerbelts.com. Use discount code PINES936 for all online orders. We thank those guys. Get you some swag. Gunnar, they make a red, white, and black belt. You got to have it.
Got to have it. Game day belt.
You got to have the game day belt. Go ahead and get you and Coach Green one. Represent Zilker Belts and, you know, get on those sidelines and coach us some style and go win that district championship for Groveton and the Indians. We thank you, Gunnar.
Appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
Thank y'all for tuning in tonight and watching live from the Pines. We appreciate you guys and everything. Like, subscribe, follow all our socials. We got everything under the screen right now. All our social medias live from the Pines on TikTok, Instagram, X, and what's that last one? Spotify. We're moving on up. Thank you, guys.